Previously on Restoration Masterclass with Vick Almighty. Last time I went all in on the prep work, spending days making sure every detail was perfect. I gave the shoes a deep clean and set it out, stripping away years of dirt and wear. Then I showed you how to create a flawless tape job. And once the surface was ready, we brought those cakes back to life, repainting the white leather to a factory fresh finish. But that was just the beginning. The donor is fine here. Now it's time to bring this patient back to life. This is it. This is where everything comes together or falls apart. And the donor that I'm gonna be using is the 2013 Fire Red 5. Now I know what you guys are thinking. Why am I restoring that beat old 2006 shoe when I can just have this 2013 and do minimal restoration and have it look so much better? The reason is simple. The purpose of this whole project was to show you guys that any shoe, no matter the condition, can have a second life. Plus, I wanted to show you guys an in-depth process on how to restore your Jordan 5s at home. This donor is from 2013. I paid 50 bucks for it on eBay. In my opinion, it's the best donor for this sneaker. I was not gonna buy the 2025s, that would make no sense. Plus there's a Nike Air on that donor, it wouldn't match the 2006. The 2013s, however, do have the Jumpman on the bottom, so it's gonna match the original sole perfectly. Plus the 2013s don't go for too much money. When I went on eBay, I was trying to find the cheapest pair as possible. I didn't want to spend too much money on a donor, but I didn't want it to be extremely beat up. Luckily, I found a pair that was in decent condition. The netting still has some iciness to it. It has some yellowing to it, but that's okay. It'll match the age on the 2006 perfectly. The midsole is in great condition as well. There is no paint cracking or peeling. That way I don't have to spend too much time fixing those issues. As far as the sole goes, it is dirty and worn. There's a lot of yellowing to it. I'm not too worried about that. Again, all of that is gonna match the age on the 2006 perfectly. The thing I am gonna try to do is remove some of the yellowing from the netting and the soles, but I'm not trying to get it to 100% nicey. There's no need for that for this project. Now, once again, I don't think anybody in the world is restoring a 2006 Fire Red 5 and replacing it with 2013 parts. The only time this will make sense is if that 2006 pair has extreme sentimental value, or if you were doing a restoration on the OG 1995 Red 5s, but in that case, you would restore it with the 2025 parts because of the Nike sole. So keep all of that in mind. For this specific situation, it's for education and entertainment purposes. The shoe is worn, but they're still in great condition overall. There is a lot of parts from the specific shoe that I'm gonna put on the 2006. I'm gonna start with the netting and the backing. All of that's gotta be transferred onto that other sneaker. I'm gonna pop off the midsole and the outsole. Let's check out the insole. The original insole on the 06s were terrible. I'm gonna assume these are in better condition. Yeah, I'm gonna take these for sure. Shoelace is dirty, but at least it's fully intact, not like the other ones. These will clean up nicely, but I'm gonna need the tongues, netting, outsole, midsole, shoelace, insole, and the lace lock. All of those parts are gonna come in clutch for that other sneaker. Let's start taking it apart. Before I start breaking down the donors into pieces, one thing I do want to say is the leather on the 2006s is way better than the 2013s. I've always hated that era of retros. They use some of the worst leather possible. This stuff just feels like straight up plastic. It doesn't even crease naturally. So in reality, I don't feel too bad destroying this shoe. I'm gonna put this shoe to the side, lace, insole, and lace lock. All of these parts gotta get cleaned up separately later. As far as this shoe goes, I'm gonna bust out the blade and start cutting it up. There's 3 parts off the shoe that I gotta remove, and that's both nettings on each side and the tongue. When I removed those parts from the 2006 retro, I was extremely careful not to damage the upper, even though I did. In this specific case, I'm not concerned about the parts that I don't need. I'm gonna grab the blade and just start kind of chopping it up. For example, I'm gonna start with the tongue and just kind of cut into it. The one thing I don't wanna do is damage the tongue itself. To ensure that I don't damage the parts that I'm trying to save, what I like to do is grab the blade and cut the stitching from the outside. This will ruin the upper, but in this case, we don't care for it. Got everything I need from the uppers, now onto the soles. First, with the pick, you just gotta stick it through the first stitch and pull it up. And just repeat the process. Since the shoe is from 2013, making it about 12 years old, the glue on this shoe is pretty old and brittle, so most of it will come off pretty easily. As you can see with the toe cap area, minimal effort is coming off. I'm gonna try to do so with the rest of the shoe. Some of the glue is still pretty firm in some areas, so I gotta be very careful when I peel off the upper. The last thing you wanna do is force it, because that will cause a tear in the midsole, and you can't go back from that. easy peasy. Most of the time, this never happens. If you are trying to separate some donors, there's 2 methods to do so if it doesn't come off as easy like this. You can use some boiling hot water, pour it into the shoe. The boiling hot water melts the glue, making it easier to remove the upper. If it's a newer shoe with brand new glue, sometimes the boiling hot water method doesn't really work. You're gonna wanna pour some acetone into the sneaker, let it sit there for about 5 minutes, then put the steamer inside the shoe. Between those 2 things, it'll melt the glue and it'll cause the upper to separate right away. In this case, we didn't have to do either. The glue was completely dried out, the upper just came right off. Now before we can attach the sole onto the uppers, it still needs some work. Real quick before I move on, this upper still has one more piece that I can use, and that's the lasting board. I'm gonna cut it off, that way I can save it for the 2006 retro. All right, supper officially trash. Deconstruction is fully out of the way. These are the parts that will be attaching to the 2006 pair. Before we can do the prep work and do all the gluing, all of these parts have got to get fully cleaned up inside and out. That means the sole, the midsole, the insole. Might as well just take care of the tongue all around. Same thing with the lace lock, give it a good cleaning. The lace, we're trying to get back to brand new white. We'll take care of the netting as well, give these a good wipe down. And same thing with the backing of the netting, get these as white as possible. I'm gonna start with the easier stuff first. That means putting this to the side. This is by far the dirtiest part. I should have been wearing my gloves before I even started this process, but it is what it is. We'll put them on now. Now once again, for this process, I will be using our Reshoevn8r Signature Kit. Comes with all 3 brushes, solution, towel to get the stuff perfectly cleaned up. Before I put some solution into our bowl of water and start scrubbing these parts with water and solution, I'm gonna do some dry brushing. I'm gonna grab our medium bristle brush, give the insole and the tongue a good scrubbing. There's a lot of hair, debris, and dust on these parts. The last thing I wanna do is push this stuff deeper into the material. Prep before the cleaning is out of the way, let's get into it. Next, I'm gonna grab our 4-ounce bottle solution, squirt 2 squirts inside our bowl of water. 2 squirts is all you need. This stuff is highly concentrated. Now once again, I am gonna be using our medium bristle brush. This is gonna give all of these parts a good scrub. All right, so far so good. We're almost done with this cleaning. Medium bristle brush, let's put that away. For the next brush, the soft bristle. The shoelace is pretty dirty, but I have a good feeling this is gonna get back to fully white. First, with the soft bristle brush, I'm gonna give it a good scrub. Now I'm done with this part of the cleaning. These pieces, the tongue, the insole, and the shoelace, all of this stuff is gonna go in the laundry bag to get an even deeper cleaner with the washing machine. Put all of this stuff inside, lock it in. We'll put it in the washing machine in just a second. For now, I still need to focus on the outsole and the midsole. These pieces will also get rinsed off in the sink. Now to get this outsole as clean as possible before we put the shoe inside the indoor setup to remove the oxidation, we gotta give it a good scrub using our brass bristle brush. You can either use the stiff bristle brush or the brass bristle brush throughout this process. In my opinion, the brass bristle brush, when it's this dirty, gets it done a little bit faster. I just highly recommend you rinse this and properly let it dry once you're done with it so it doesn't rust on you. Cleaning is fully complete. When it comes to these outsoles and you're trying to remove the yellowing afterwards, make sure you get all that grime completely out. That means all the little grooves in the sole gotta get fully flushed out from all the grime and dirt. You'll get better results once it's time to apply the Survive and put them in the indoor setup. So next, I'm gonna take some of these parts to the sink to rinse them out, then put the laundry bag in the washing machine with some laundry sheets. Let's go finish this up. Down the sink. I'll have to tell Steve to come fix it. All right, to complete this deep cleaning process, we need one of our Reshoevn8r laundry sheets. This is the magic right here to get these parts fully cleaned up. As far as the washing cycle goes, since we're not putting an actual shoe in the washing machine, it doesn't really matter, but I'm gonna use cold water with the regular cycle. While this stuff is in the washing machine, let's work on this outsole. As you can see, there's a ton of yellowing on this icy sole. That's part of the reason why I got these for so cheap. Due to age and wear, this is why they're so yellow. This is gonna happen to any icy sole, whether you wear it or not. They're gonna get yellow over time, especially if you wear them. In this situation, the yellowing is pretty deep. It's gonna be nearly impossible to get it back to its original state. However, in other cases, if the sole is yellow and the shoe's deadstock and never been worn, that yellowing is extremely easy to take out. To remove the oxidation from the icy soles or white rubber, all you need is some Reshoevn8r Solar Revive and some UV rays from the indoor setup or the sun. To do this correctly, all you need is to apply a thin coat on the icy parts or on the white rubber if that's the area that's yellowed. Once it's been fully applied, you'll put a piece of plastic wrap over it to keep the Solar Revive nice and fresh while it's in the indoor setup. You don't want it to dry out without it. To do this process correctly, it could take a couple days or weeks. It all depends on the condition of the shoe. For this one right here, like I mentioned, I doubt we're gonna get it to perfect icy results. It's Friday right now. I'm only gonna give it a couple of days. Once I apply a good coat, I'm gonna let it sit over the weekend. On Monday, we'll see what the results look like. I don't wanna spend a ton of time on this process. I could literally put this sole in the indoor setup for a good 2 to 3 weeks, but at some point, it's gonna tap out without getting the full icy sole. So with all that being said, I'm gonna apply some to get them in the Vick 2000. Plastic wrap out first. Then all you want to do is spread it all around the sole. Make sure it has even coverage. What you don't want to do is let this drip onto the midsole because it could potentially ruin the paint job. Solar Revive's been applied. I'm going to flip this over, wrap it up to keep the Solar Revive fresh throughout this entire process. Let's put these in the Vick 2000. The weekend is up. It's been a little bit more than 48 hours. These are the results. Honestly, way better than I expected. I thought there was gonna be a lot of yellowing all around, but for the most part, it all got removed. I'm sure if I apply some more Solar Revive and put these in there for another 2 or 3 days, I will get some even better results. But in my situation, I'm gonna keep it as is. I think they look good. If you're working on these at home, what I would do if you're trying to get better results, apply a fresh coat of Solar Revive every single morning, let it sit for 24 hours, then reapply another coat and repeat the process. Once you stop getting results, usually that means the sole is fully tapped out and you're not gonna get any better results. You also don't want to overdo it and lose traction on the sole. Now, I understand not everybody has an indoor setup at home. What you can also do is just use the sun, put some Solar Revive on the shoe, let it sit outside. The thing is, you got to keep an eye on it. If you live in a hot state or it's in the middle of the summer, you don't want to leave them out there for too long. The glue will melt and cause separation. You also want to be careful with the sole sauce dripping onto the uppers because that'll ruin it. All of those things you got to keep in mind when removing yellowing from the outsoles. Now, before I can attach this onto the upper, I got to remove all the oak glue from the outsole. The oak glue's been removed from the upper. Now for the sole, we're gonna be using a different method. You don't wanna use acetone for this midsole. A couple of things can happen. For one, this midsole is on the older side. There's a good chance that acetone could start eating away at the polyurethane and start causing some crumbling. Also, acetone can get pretty messy. There's a good chance it'll drip onto the midsoles and it'll ruin it. So the best way to remove all the oak glue is to use a Dremel. I'm gonna be using a 60 grit. The thing is, you don't wanna Dremel too much into the midsoles, especially the sides. You just wanna hit that top surface to remove the glue. Done with the Dremeling on the polyurethane, the best way to know if all the glue is off, you want to make sure all that shiny stuff, all that gunk is fully off. You want it to look like this, nice and clean. That's the best way to know all the oak glue is off. Now for the rubber toe cap, it's a little bit different. You don't want to use the same drill bit. What you want to do is switch it over to a metal drill bit. This is going to help not damage the rubber on the toe cap. Here's where I'm at with the project. All the prep work's fully done. I removed all the oak glue in the beginning of this video off the uppers. For the midsole and sole, we just shaved it all off. All the oak glue is fully off. Now the next step is to lay down a bunch of glue on all the parts to start piecing stuff together. We still need to attach the netting and the tongues. Another thing I want to touch on is the tongue. This is the original one. It's still in pretty good condition. Obviously it's missing the netting. I removed it. On the 2013 pair, I also removed the tongue with the netting. It's honestly the same exact thing. There's very, very little differences. If anything, the 2013 is a lot better. It has more padding, better structure to it. It still has a netting that's still pretty clear. The biggest difference is the elastic bands, but honestly, you don't see that, so it doesn't really make a difference. So with that being said, sometimes it's better to work smarter, not harder. This is the original one. I was planning on removing the netting, swapping it onto here by applying glue, then stitching it in. But honestly, that process alone is gonna take a couple of hours. Makes no sense to do that when I have a brand new part right here. It's the exact same. The netting's already attached. scratch, all I have to do is attach it to the upper and we're good to go. So with that being said, this is gonna be our new tongue. We have new tongues, netting, midsoles, and soles. This restoration is coming together. Now, we are gonna be using Barge Super Stick. This stuff is extremely strong and it's extremely stinky. So when you're using it, you wanna use it in a well-ventilated area with the mask. All you gotta do is apply a thin coat of glue on the areas you're trying to bond. The way this stuff works is it's contact cement, meaning you apply it, you let it cure for a couple of hours. When it's time to bond it, you have to apply a little bit of heat to get the glue nice and tacky on both parts. Once it's a little tacky, you attach everything together and that's how it's done. I'll show you that process in just a second. For a good quality glue job, you wanna make sure your glue is nice and runny. If it's thick and old, that might get in the way of a good glue job. Now, as far as piecing the shoe together, before I can even attach the midsoles and soles onto the upper, I still need to sew in the tongues and the netting. But before I can do that, the glue's gonna help me attach those parts. That way, when I go to the machine, it makes it super easy. I'm gonna apply glue onto the toe cap, onto the midsole, let that dry. Same thing with the netting, just all around the edges. I don't want nothing in the center. This is the backing from the 2013s. As you can see, it's nicely white after putting them in the washing machine. All that grime and dirt fully washed away. I'm also gonna put some glue all around the edges. That way I can attach the netting onto this part. For the tongue, we'll apply some glue on the bottom area. And as far as the upper goes, this is gonna require a lot of glue. Basically, the entire bottom area that's roughened up needs glue. Glue back here for the tongue. We'll also need to put glue in this area. That way it can stick right in here before we sew it in place. We need glue all on the inside. Once all the glue is fully applied, we'll let it cure for a few hours before we start bonding pieces together. Glue's been applied, it's fully cured and ready to go. To cure the glue, you can let it sit for a few hours or days. Once you come back to it, it'll still work just fine. Next, I'm gonna be using a heat gun to bond all the parts. I'm gonna start off with the netting and the backing. The glue's been applied all around the edges. All I need is very little heat to get these to stick together. Once these are bonded, we're gonna move on to piecing these pieces onto the upper. I'll show you that in just a second. Let's do this first. All right, these parts are fully heated up. Now you want to take your time, make sure everything bonds perfectly and lines up nicely as well. So I'm gonna start off with this corner and work my way to doing the rest. Just take your time. You don't want to go back and do this twice. Good to go with step one. You're gonna wanna let it cool down first before you put this part into the shoe. Now, before you heat it up and bond it, you wanna make sure it lines up perfectly. So you're gonna wanna put it inside, take your time doing this step. You're gonna have to kind of finesse it in there a little bit, but trust me, it'll fit properly. Once it's inside, there's a line all around the netting that you can see where it's supposed to line up with the leather. Once you feel confident that it's all lined up perfectly, you could grab the heat gun, apply a little bit of heat to get the glue tacky and start bonding. The netting is in place. All we gotta do now is sew it to lock it in. Now remember part one where I was rushing trying to get the netting off this side and I accidentally with the blade cut into the leather? Yep, dumb mistake. Well, now it's time to fix it, and honestly, it's not that hard. What I'm gonna do now is tape off the netting real quick and apply a little bit of glue onto the netting and right where the cut is. You don't wanna get any of the glue onto the white leather because that'll create a mess. Once we apply it, we'll let it cure for about 20 minutes or so. With a little bit of heat, we'll bond it perfectly down and you're barely gonna be able to see that scratch. It's been about 30 minutes. Glue is fully cured. To do this correctly, you want to make sure you glue down the correct piece of leather first. The way the cut was, it was at an angle. One of the panels has this ugly gray texture showing. The other piece of leather, if done correctly, will cover that up. So in this case, we got two pieces. I'm gonna lay down this piece first, then I'll worry about the other side. All right, so this bottom piece of the leather lined up perfectly with the netting. All we gotta do now is lay down this top piece. What we wanna do with this top layer is cover up that slice as best as possible. What I don't wanna do is go back and lay down more leather filler or paint. So you wanna make sure you take your time. Before you apply heat, just kind of test out what it will look like. Once you feel confident, lay down the heat and bond it together. Overall, this turned out great. That area blends in nicely with the creasing. Once I add some stitching, all that area is gonna be fully locked in. The thing is, it can still look a little bit better. I can still see the cut. So I'm gonna grab some more Angelus leather filler with a little piece of sandpaper. I'm gonna grab just a little bit of filler, apply it right on that area, just enough to cover up the crack. Since the crack is so small, I'm gonna grab my finger to wipe off the excess. Quick and easy. For the most part, it's covered up. I'm gonna let this dry for about an hour.
A few moments later.
This area is fully dried. It didn't take very long like it originally did in this area. Now to finish blending it in with the rest of the leather, I'm gonna be using the exact same white Angelus leather paint with a small detail brush. I'm just gonna apply it onto this area very lightly until I can't see the line anymore. Little by little, we're almost done with this restoration. Now we still have to go in and apply some stitching on both sides of the shoe to fully lock in the netting right around this area. Now for this, you could do two different things. What I mostly do in all my projects is use a post-bed machine. It works so much faster, it gets the job done. The thing is, that machine over there is pretty expensive. I don't expect anybody to just have one at home. I definitely don't recommend, if you're just starting off, to go spend 2,000 bucks or more on a machine. You don't need to do that. However, at some point, you are gonna have to do some sewing on a shoe. You could do so using a sewing awl. I use this tool all the time, especially on Jordan 1s or Jordan 3s, 4s, and 5s with the stitching on the toe cap. The same exact tool can also do the stitching on the uppers. We just gotta use smaller thread and a smaller needle. The smaller needle is a trick. It's gotta be able to go through the holes of the upper, and it's gotta have a hole right on top in order for the thread to go through it. We're also gonna need some white thread. The way the sewing awl works is pretty simple. When I first started off, I didn't understand the process, but after a few tries, it became so simple to me. Hopefully after I show you guys this process, it's simple to you guys as well. So we need the sewing awl, thread, and some scissors. To start, we're gonna need to cut 2 pieces of thread. You don't want them short, you want them long enough. The worst thing to do during a sew job is to not cut enough thread. You don't wanna get close to the end and run out of thread. It's the most annoying thing ever. At that point, you gotta rethread it and finish it off. Now the reason why we need 2 pieces of thread is one for the outside of the shoe and one for the inside. The inside thread catches the outside thread in order to lock it in. Let me show you what I mean. Let's cut 2 pieces real quick. As far as the thread goes, I like to use the size number 69. There's other numbers that are pretty close to this, so keep that in mind. You don't really want anything too thin. Now first, you're gonna wanna grab the first piece of thread and thread it through the needle. Then you're gonna wanna find your starting point on the shoe. In this situation, I'm gonna start right in this corner, work my way all around till I come to this point. This panel right here is separate, and that's gonna require more thread, but we'll get to that later. Right now, we gotta focus on this single line right now. I'm gonna start with that corner. I wanna make sure that needle goes through the original hole. I don't wanna create any funky ones. One more thing I wanna point out is the thread on the back is gonna show. In this situation, I don't want the thread showing on the red sock liner. So what I'm gonna do is peel it back just a little bit. That way when I'm sewing it, it's not going through the red liner. Then grab the thread from one side and pull the needle out. Now you have the end of the thread. You wanna keep the needle thread on the other end, kind of what it looks like so far with just one piece. Now this is where the second piece comes into play. For the first piece of thread, you wanna grab the end of the second, and make a little knot. Then you're gonna wanna double knot it to make sure it's fully locked in. All right, there you have it so far. Both pieces of thread are connected. Now we do have some excess right here. I'm gonna chop it off. Careful and don't cut the actual piece of thread that you do need. All right, now that we have our knot, you're gonna wanna grab the first piece of thread and pull on it until you hit where the knot is. All right, 2 pieces of thread are connected. Now you can start sewing it together. Now when it comes to the needle, on one side, there's a little divot. Once I put the needle through the shoe, on the inside, I'm gonna pull on the thread of the opposite side of the little divot. All right. Now I'm gonna grab the thread from that side of the needle that I just mentioned. See right here, you're gonna wanna pull it. That right there creates your first stitch. And then you still have that first thread. You're gonna wanna create a loop with the second thread, put it through. Then grab that first piece of thread from the outside and pull on it. Once you tie in both sides evenly, you have officially created your first stitch, and you just go from there. Let's do this one more time. Pull your thread from the needle, give it some slack, put it through the next hole very carefully. Same exact thing, grab the thread from the opposite side, pull on it, make the loop, grab that second thread, and loop it right through. Grab the thread from the outside and pull on it until it's even on both sides. This process is honestly pretty easy. It's just time consuming. Usually what I do is just kind of take it home, throw a movie on or two, and just kind of do this process. It's pretty boring, but it's honestly really easy. At first you'll have fun with it, but after like 100 stitches, you'll quickly be over it. Now what I'm doing right now is the exact same process as I would on a Jordan 1 sole. After you reglue a Jordan 1, you still need to go in and apply the stitching. What I'm doing right now is the exact same process for the soles. All right, it's been about like 3 or 4 minutes and I'm just about like 4 stitches in. It's a satisfying process, but like I mentioned, it takes a while. Now I am on a time crunch. I wanna get this job done so we can move on to the midsoles. So I'm gonna head over to the post bed and show you how to do that process as well. Now the post bed that I'm using is from the brand Texo. It's a good high quality brand. The thing is though, you don't need to spend a lot of money on a machine like this. You can find one cheaper that gets the job done. Just do your Googles. Now as far as this machine goes, it may seem overwhelming because it's a whole table with a whole machine on top, motor on the bottom, but at the end of the day, it's the exact same thing as a sewing gauze on white thread. We have the white thread right here that goes on the top, the needle, and the bottom thread. That's all it is. All right, I'm gonna put the upper on this post. Same thing, line up the needle with the original hole, and we'll go from there. Difference is, this is a lot faster and smoother. All you gotta do is just hit the original holes and go from there. In this situation, I do this manually. I could use a motor, but I wanna make sure the needle hits the original hole every single time. Thanks to the post bed, we got this job done within 10 minutes. Again, if you're just starting off, you don't need to go and spend all your money on one of those things. The sewing gauze will do the trick, but if you're trying to take this stuff seriously, you definitely wanna save your money and get one of those things. You could do so much more with it. You could at some point even make a whole shoe from scratch. Now, we still need to attach the tongue onto the upper. When I lay down all the glue, I got glue on the tongue and this bottom piece. Now I'm gonna heat it up, stick it on there, make sure it's lined up perfectly. The way to know if it's lined up perfectly is to make sure you're lining up the original holes with the holes of the upper. Every shoe on every part has a center point. For example, right here in the tongue, you have a little widow's peak. On the upper of the 5s, you can still see a little peak right here as well. That's our center point. We're gonna line it up, heat it up, stick it together, then go to the post bed one more time to lock it in with some stitching. All right, check this out, you guys. This upper is coming together nicely. Tongue is fully attached, netting on both sides. Upper, for the most part, is looking good. Now, we still need to attach the midsoles onto the uppers. Before you can grab the heat gun and start bonding, first thing you have to do is identify the center point on the upper and the midsole. Every single shoe has it. Normally, when the lasting board is attached, you can see right on the bottom. If you look right here, there's a line that goes straight down the middle of the lasting board. When it's attached, it lets you know exactly where the center point is in the front and on the back. The thing is, since it's off, we can't really trust this at the moment, but there's still other center points on the upper that lets you know exactly where it is. For example, on the back, there is a little peak right here in the bottom. Let's say if that wasn't there and I accidentally shaved it off during the skiving process, all I would have to do is look at the Jumpman, find the center point on the body, and just go straight down, and that's my center point. As far as the front goes, on the inside, we do have this line on the fabric material. That's also your center point. For that part, I'm just gonna create a line right on the outside, exactly where the line is, and just mark it right on top and on the back. As far as the midsole goes, same exact thing. I didn't do any shaving on the middle area, so you can still see some of the lines. If you look closely, this line goes straight down. That tells me right around here is my center point. If you look at the opposite side, the line goes down the same way and it kind of ends up right here. That's my next center point. So I'm gonna grab a heat removal pen, make my marking. It's 1, 2. Now for the upper, I'm gonna reference Michael Jordan right around there. Center point, looks good. Let's look at the inside, that's my line. All right, there's my marks. Now, once I apply heat, those marks are gonna go away. So what I like to do is grab some tape, make some triangles, and place them right where the markings are. Once the tape is laid down, what you wanna do is put the upper on the sole, line it up to the tape marks, and just make sure nothing looks wonky. This is your last chance to make sure everything lines up properly before you apply heat. All right, looks good to me. Ready for some heat. Now remember you guys, this is one part you definitely do not wanna rush. Take your time, you only get one shot at this.
You got one shot, do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Oh.
What up, Rob?
You busy, man?
Yeah, I'm busy, bro, but I always got time for you.
Cool, actually it's for our customer because he has a question in regards to like regluing soles. Obviously, I don't know restorations, you're the expert. So I just want to be able to assist him because we've been going back and forth having some good conversations.
So he just wants to know how to reglue an upper to the sole?
Yeah, he's basically asking like if we can break him down the proper steps.
Well, lucky for you, bro, I'm showing the viewers right now how to do this step. I would love to show you so you can show those guys how to do it. Take a seat, young buck. All right, man. So at this point, I already found my center points on the upper.
Okay, time out. Time's in. So I do see the tape.
Yeah.
Is that basically how you're lining it up?
Yeah, that's my center point, you know?
How did you find the center? Are you pulling out a ruler, tape measure?
Yeah. So I explained it to the viewers already. I'll quickly explain it to you real quick.
Yeah.
Every shoe has a center point, whether that's on the inside, right here. For example, on the inside, you have a line.
Okay.
That's your center. Sometimes on the newer shoes, you have a little widow's peak right there on the tip. That's your center point as well. If there's nothing in the back, you can reference Michael Jordan. Just find the middle point and just go straight down.
So basically from his PP down?
PP down. On the sole, same thing. From the lasting board, if you look closely, you can see a line.
Yeah. I mean, it's also the red line too. Is that what you say?
I created that.
Oh, you created the red line.
But that's the original line right there, just to kind of show you more where it's at. But if you look closely, you can just see that line go straight down. That's exactly where the middle point is. So I got my tape point here, tape point over there. This part's important because if you don't do this and you just go straight to gluing, you can risk having this Jumpman way to the side.
Oh, wow.
Or have the upper just all lopsided.
Have you ever done that before?
Yeah, earlier on when I didn't do this step, you know, I would just kind of wing it thinking I was doing a good job. Once it was all done, you would have like the toe box just kind of to the side a little bit. Then the sole would kind of pick up a little bit.
And how long do you, so after you applied it, you may have already said this, my bad. How long do you let it cure for?
Anywhere from
an hour, 2 hours, 24 hours.
It all depends on what you're gluing exactly. No, there's not too long. I can apply glue right now and let it sit for 2 weeks, and I could come back and bond it together.
Is there not too long, but is there such thing as too fast?
Too fast for sure. You know, I don't want to apply the glue and 10 minutes, you know, go straight to bonding. It's not gonna work.
So the bare minimum, they should wait at least
maybe 45 minutes or so, 30 minutes or so, put it next to a fan. As long as the glue is not tacky at all, you should be fine.
Cool.
So now at this point, in order to get the glue tacky, we need some heat. What I like to do is make my center points and start with the front. So I like to do a couple test shots first. So that's technically where it's supposed to line up.
So I see you're starting from the front. Does it have to be the front, or is there a reason why you start from the front?
I mean, in some situations, you can start in the back. It might be a preference thing for me.
What if you start in the middle and then work your way out that way? Does that work?
It makes it a little harder sometimes, you know? You're risking not getting the front or the back centered. The front and the back in a way are the most important parts. As long as those two parts line up first, everything else lines up by itself. You know what I'm saying? So at this point, I think I'm ready for some heat. Again, you don't need too much.
Does it matter which one you heat up first? You have to heat them both up?
Not at all. Just heat them up at the same time.
It will get tacky to touch.
You won't feel it, but if you have both parts that are tacky, as soon as you touch it, it bonds. So when you're aiming and it's hot, you better make sure it hits the part you need it. Because if it's here, you're gonna try to rip it apart, that glue's gonna come off, now you have to go back and redo it.
Makes sense.
You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
Can I do it?
What was that, about 4 or 5 seconds?
About 4 or 5 seconds, yeah.
And again, if I overdo it, just gotta let it cool down for a second. You don't have to rush this. See, this feels hot.
Warm.
You know? So what you don't wanna do is rush it, because if that happens, you're gonna create a spider web effect with the glue job. It's not gonna fully bond. It's just gonna create this ugly spider effect that you really don't want.
Yeah, we don't want that. I have an arachnophobia. Then how long do you need to hold it for it to properly stick?
A few seconds, man. Not too long, really. You know, as long as you did the prepper correctly, this stuff is instant contact, you know? So what you just wanna do is cover up that glue line.
Have you ever barged cement and like got your fingers stuck as you're doing this, or like touching
never.
something?
So like what I'm gonna do now is grab this tool, because it's kind of hard to get to certain points, and just kind of use it as something to be able to apply pressure with.
So you say you've never done that, but is it possible to possibly glue your fingers together trying to do something like this?
Not really, man. Not with contact cement. Super glue, yes, but you never want to use super glue on a shoe, because that stuff dries horribly and it gets really hard to the point where it's gonna crack and it's just not gonna hold up. Never use super glue on a shoe.
That is why I'm asking, because I've gotten super glue on my fingers.
Hurts.
Yeah, and they get stuck in.
Not with bar cement. Doesn't work that way. All right, what are you thinking, bro? How does it look?
I mean, I don't got my glasses, but it looks pretty lined up.
Tape is perfect, gray's covered up, it's bonded right away, I'm not even holding it. What was that, like 20 seconds worth of work?
Maybe 35 on a good day.
All right. So again, I'm just gonna use the tool that I'm using from the inside and using my thumb to press down on it. I wanna make sure it's fully secured.
So you only applied the heat to both front areas, correct?
Exactly, nothing else. Because if I apply heat all around and stuff, what's gonna happen is this is gonna start bonding over here. And as you can see, it's not even lined up properly.
Correct,
So then I'm gonna be fighting it over here, trying to separate it, removing the glue and stuff. So you really just wanna be strategic and apply heat where you wanna bond it first. So again, that looks really good. It's a good starting point.
No, yeah.
Usually what I like to do is kind of let it sit for a couple of minutes before I jump to the back. That way the glue can cure for a bit. And then same exact thing, you know, you find the back, you line it up, and you go from
So how
there.
are you actually getting heat in the middle of the shoe?
So there's no lasting board. That's the thing.
Oh, you pulled that out.
Exactly.
Episode 2.
In episode 2 or 1. No, 1.
Episode 1.
So that's the trick to it. You know, it makes it a little bit easier as well to bond. And then all you have to do is just follow the lines.
So then do you just glue in the lasting board as well, so you don't re-stitch it
Exactly.
when you do something like this?
Not in this case, you know, you just don't kind of have to. The glue job is solid. This is not what's gonna make or break the shoe. You can wear it just fine as long as you do the prepper correctly, apply good glue, apply the right amount of heat. This glue job is 100% solid.
So if someone did go the method you did for this video, they took out the lasting board. Do they even still need it at this point?
I mean,
because I mean, it's just
technically, yes and no. You don't want to just have your foot straight up on polyurethane, you know.
I mean, throw a little insole.
Exactly. Technically, this doesn't really do much.
Yeah.
You know, this is more so for when you're making the shoe.
Create the form, yeah.
To create the form, exactly. At this point, we have the form already. We don't need it. Unless you're like playing basketball or something, you know how those ball players just kind of like put a lot of pressure,
Yeah,
you know, they
yeah,
cross
yeah.
somebody over. That lasting board is holding that shoe. So there's a good chance that your foot can go through like Zion Williamson did, you know. So there are situations where you do want this, but nobody's, you know,
for sure when you're, yeah, it makes sense.
you know, but if you are doing a restoration for a basketball player,
Yeah, we're not
like
in the-
PJ Tucker.
Yeah, we're not in the 90s no more. No one's hooping in.
Exactly.
fives.
So I think it's ready for the back. So same thing, bro. You want to make sure it lines up nicely. You also want to make sure it's not lopsided because sometimes you can center it, but it's still to the side.
Yep.
And that'll also throw everything off. So you want to make sure it's solid, even on both sides, lined up. Once you feel good about it, throw some heat on there.
Well, yeah.
So check this out.
Here, let me see the heat gun. I'll hit it from the back.
One thing I like to do sometimes is like fold the upper a
Form
little
it.
bit. That way the sides are not hitting these sides and potentially, you know, bonding and kind of getting in the way of me lining it up perfectly. So just kind of take your time.
Okay, perfect.
Just kind of start doing the rest of the sides.
So I don't want to talk to you and mess you up, but
No,
at
you're good,
what
bro.
point in your restoration career did you start doing,
More of these?
yeah, more like glue and resoling
Yeah.
sneakers? Is
Wasn't-
this like a entry level customizing technique, or is this, you know,
It
took
can
you
be,
years?
you know, I'll be honest, this is more of a recent thing in the last 2.5 years. Originally back then, I didn't have the correct info to do this or have the confidence to do more of these, but like good people like Alex Flippin' Kicks, A1 Restorations, they've been here before. I've seen their videos and stuff
Yeah.
like on Patreon. I ask questions. They've taught me the proper way on how to go about this. So honestly, if I would have known this information 10 years ago, I would have been doing this a lot longer.
Yeah, so if you guys want information like this, Vic doesn't have a Patreon, but you can just sign up for his OnlyFans.
Yep, Robert has one too, man. Gonna collab. All right, so looks pretty good, man.
Yeah, no, honestly, the tape
Yeah.
is lined up perfectly.
So at this point, for the most part, it's on the midsole. Now
Yeah,
it's
you
all
can see
about
it.
taking care of the rest of the shoe.
See, this to me seems like more of a challenging part. Like, how do you,
In a way,
are you heating it from the inside?
you're doing it in sections still, you know? So you have your anchor points at the same time you want to do first. You don't want to just be random with it. For example, one of the most important parts of a shoe is the lateral side, meaning the outside side, the part that mostly everybody sees. So you kind of want to start there and make sure this part is perfect and then, you know, focus on this medial side after.
Okay.
So with that being said, I'm thinking about starting right around here.
Is there a reason why? Because now you're back more towards
Yeah.
the middle rather than the front or the back, working your
Yeah.
way towards it.
Because here, for example, let's say I wanted to do this part first, and I just kind of pull it back, and I lock this part in. Now you see this part, it's not fully lining up. So I already locked myself over here, so now I don't really have as much room or wiggle room.
Wiggle room, yep.
If I do this part just needs heat and
You
just
have more
bonds right
finesse,
away.
easier to
Exactly,
finesse.
and this part's easier to bond.
All right, so my question is, you're choosing this area. Obviously for this shoe, it makes sense because like the
Yeah.
sole's higher up here. So I can see why you're gonna wanna get that first and wiggle room. What if you're working with like, let's say a dunk, that the sole's flat and more
Yeah.
even? Do you still need more middle point for wiggle room, or is it all the
Great
same?
question. You know, you definitely still want to be strategic with it, front, back, and at that point, you may want to do like the front area first, because again, it's so simple of a upper with the sole is
Yeah,
just
it's
flat,
all
you know.
one
So
line.
I would start with this front area, and now more that I'm talking about it, I might do this front area area first as well, just because it's a little bit easier to access with the heat. Once this part's locked in, I have less wiggle room with the heat. So it's a little smarter in this situation to heat this part up, bond it. That way it's a little easier to get to the rest of the parts. So
would you ever use the heat gun on the inside to try to heat up and stick it, or are you only applying the heat on the outer sole?
I'm applying it like right in the middle, you know what I'm saying? So I want the heat to be hitting the upper and the midsole at the same time. You know
but you would never like stick it up in there, stick that heat gun in there. And
probably not necessary. You know, I might ruin the inside. All right, let's do this part first.
All right, let's get you to work.
Yeah, bro. Same thing, man. You just kind of like follow the line. Luckily, the gray line is pretty harsh. You know exactly where it's at.
Yeah, for sure.
So you just kind of start covering it up little by little. Yeah, write this stuff down, bro.
I am, yeah, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I don't see you doing enough of that.
Step 1, tell them not to contact customer service for restoration questions. Step 2, tell them to DM Vick Almighty directly. He loves getting your messages. Step 3, shop all your shoe care needs with Reshoevn8r.
So same thing, bro. I like to use this tool right here. Sometimes my thumb can't apply even pressure, but this tool can. So
and what is this tool called? I'm sure you probably already said it.
Yeah, it's called a bone folder. It's a steel one, you know. You can use anything. I've seen people use different stuff, but for me, this tool just kind of works perfectly.
So obviously I'm seeing you do this live. Someone watching from the outside in, how long should they expect to take doing this stage? Like for a novice, should it take them 30 minutes per sole?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Hour?
Yeah, it's a great question. Most of the work, you're gonna be spending it on prep work, laying down the glue, all that stuff. When it comes to actually bonding the shoe, you're gonna spend about 30 minutes on each shoe. Maybe less, you know, it depends on the shoe you're working with.
And
some are a little bit harder.
level,
exactly. But, you know, as long as you do all the proper work beforehand, the glue job technically is the easiest part, you know, but it takes a little experience. You also just have to practice, you know. This is probably like my, I don't know, 50th, 100th glue job. I don't even know. I might be exaggerating it there, but I've done this enough times to feel confident doing this type of things, you know?
This is the master class.
And these are kind of easy at the end of the day. All you have to do is line it up with the original glue line. Where it gets a little trickier is the fusions, because you're putting an upper.
Making your own.
You're putting an upper that doesn't fit on that sole. You're forcing it, you know, you're finessing it on there with the glue job. So at some point, I'll show you guys how to go about those. But at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. Take your time.
I mean, I think I learned a lot just by observing. You know, I got some good information to regurgitate to the customer. But basically, long story short, just tell him to watch the masterclass, and he's gonna learn exactly how to do it.
Tell him to watch the masterclass and tell him to head over to Reshoevn8r.com. Thank you, Rob.
I'm gonna let you get back to work. Elbows.
Thank you, bro.
You both gotta get back to work.
Get the fuck out of here. All right, midsole and the sole is fully attached onto the uppers. Pretty crazy from where we started. Sole doesn't have any holes, no crazy heel drag, pretty impressive. Now to finish out this process, let's grab the lasting board. This is the original one from the 2013 one. I already applied a glue. All I'm gonna do is put it inside, make sure it lines up properly, then throw some heat inside and press down on it. Easy stuff. To me, let's throw some heat. When doing this step, you guys, keep it moving around. You don't want to burn a hole inside the shoe. And then with my seal folder, I'm just gonna press down on it. Perfect. Glue job is fully complete, and this next step is important, the stress test. As long as you did everything correctly, that means the prep work, glue, all that stuff, it should hold up just fine. Let me show you guys what I mean. Now that's a glue job. It's not just about making sure the shoe looks good, but we gotta make sure the shoe holds up, especially when it comes to wearing the sneaker. Now, we gotta reapply the stitching onto the toe cap. It's gonna be the exact same method like I showed you guys when it comes to the uppers. I'm gonna be using the sewing gauze once again. The only difference is I'm gonna be using some thicker thread. When it comes to the stitching on the toe caps and midsoles, I use a size Tex 270. It's a perfect size. Same exact method. I'm gonna grab 2 pieces of thread, one for the outside, one for the inside. The only thing is, it gets a little tricky when it comes to this area. You gotta be able to reach your fingers all the way inside to be able to pull the thread. I'll show you what I mean. Now realistically, you don't need this much thread, but it's better to have extra than not enough. All right, same concept. We're gonna put the thread through the hole, then stick it in the first hole. As you start on the right side, then put your hand inside, find a thread, hold on to it as you pull out the sewing gauze, pull the other end inside the shoe. Now we got the thread kind of going through the sneaker. Now you grab the second piece. Once again, you make a knot, connecting both pieces. Quick little knot, nothing crazy, and then double it up to make it stronger. Grab some scissors, cut the excess. Grab your sewing ball, pull the other side all the way through. As long as the knot is done right, both pieces should hold up strong. Now from there, you grab your sewing gauze, where now the thread is on this side of the needle. When I stick it inside, I'm gonna grab this side. You just pull it through. Now I have this loop right here. You grab that second piece of thread from the inside and you put it through. And then from there, just kind of pull on the thread from the outside. Make sure it's perfectly in place. After that, you create your first stitch. Then you repeat the process until you get to the other point. Now the sides are pretty easy. It's when you get to the middle point that gets a little trickier. Sometimes depending on the toe box, it's kind of hard to reach in there. I'm at the final stitch. To complete this process, it's pretty straightforward. I'm gonna grab the sewing gauze, grab the thread, stick it through, grab the thread, and instead of creating a loop this time, I'm just gonna hold on to it and pull it all the way through. I don't need the sewing gauze no more. And I'm just gonna grab that piece of thread so it's all the way through. Just like that. Now we do have all this excess thread. It's better to have extra than not enough. Grab some scissors and cut the rest. Process is complete. Now I feel like I'm explaining this pretty good, but the thing is, it still might be confusing. The best way to do this process is just by doing it. Practice makes perfect. This restoration is about 95% complete. I did all the hard steps. Now at this point, it's about making the shoe look as good as possible. Now in the uppers, there's a ton of creasing still. When I removed the netting and the midsoles, there was zero structure to the uppers, ton of creasing. It was basically just pieces of leather sewn on together. But after I put on the netting, tongues, and new midsole, it definitely gave us some new structure for the uppers. However, there's still a ton of creasing all around. This ankle area is not gonna get any better. Unfortunately, this creasing is pretty permanent. The material on that area is Durabug. It's not the same as the leather on the rest of the shoe. If I try to do anything else, it's just gonna cause the material to get weakened and possibly crack. As far as the rest of the upper goes, I'm not gonna get it 100% perfect, but I could get this toe box and the overall shape of the sneaker looking a lot better with a couple simple steps. The first one being our shoe tree. What this is gonna do is help eliminate some of the creasing on the toe box by applying some pressure. I'm also gonna give this upper a nice cleaning using our soft bristle brush and the Reshoevn8r solution. It's gonna do a couple different things. This shoe is on the older side. Luckily for our solution, it does contain natural oils that's gonna help recondition the overall sneaker. What it's also gonna do is, once the shoe is all wet and it dries, it's gonna dry to the shape of the shoe tree, giving the toe box and the overall shoe a better shape. You'll see what I mean in just a second. First things first, with the shoe tree, you wanna make sure it's the correct sizing. You don't wanna do too little, because nothing's gonna happen. You also don't wanna do too much, because that's gonna make the shape of the sneaker look weird. All right, the third hole, that's about right. All right, looks solid, doesn't look uneven. Let's keep it moving. Next, let's grab our solution. Like always, all we need is 2 squirts inside our bowl of water. Now at this point, it's a satisfying process. The shoe is all cleaned up, it's not really dirty. All I wanna do is let the bristles do all the work and get the solution into the leather. Off the rip, I can tell it's working, specifically on the toe box. This is also proof that when it comes to a painted sneaker, you could clean it just fine as long as you did the correct prep work and lay down a finisher over that paint. All right, good to go. Let's pat it down dry. All right, perfect. Once again, let's put the shoe outside to dry for a good 20 minutes so we can come back, lace it up, and put the insole inside. Shoe's all dry, that's as good as it's gonna get, not complaining. I'm gonna pull the shoe tree out real quick so I can insert the insole. This is the replacement 2013 insole. It's in way better condition than the original. The original one had that big ass hole. There's no reason to use that when this one is a perfect replacement. We're also gonna be using the laces from that 2013 pair. I gave these a good deep clean. They're back to being white. They're gonna go nicely on these uppers. And we also got the lace lock. Let's complete this restoration. The final and last step to this restoration is to give the shoe a nice coat of some Reshoevn8r Mink Oil. I doubt the shoe's ever been cleaned up or reconditioned. To make the shoe fully wearable for years to come, we're gonna spray the entire upper with some mink oil. What this is gonna do is help recondition the leather to keep it healthy and flexible for years to come. Without this stuff, what's gonna happen? The leather will crack and fall apart over time. This right here is what's gonna prolong the life of this sneaker. Before I grab the horsehair brush, I'm gonna put the shoe down and let the mink oil sink into the upper for a good 15 to 20 minutes before I brush in the rest. This shoe definitely needed some mink oil. A lot of the areas absorbed it nicely to the point where it's not even shiny anymore. There is still some spots that have some leftover mink oil. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the brush and brush it in. Done. Mission complete, you guys. This restoration is fully complete. For you guys watched 3 parts to get this restoration complete. For me, this took days upon days upon days, hours upon hours upon hours to get it to this point. And I'm honestly super satisfied on how this shoe turned out. Everything was needed on this sneaker. This is one of my biggest restorations to date. To show you guys how good the shoe turned out, let's bring in the before. I gotta be careful. I'm still not wearing gloves. I don't want to touch the sneaker. Freaking insane, you guys. You can't even tell it's the same shoe. This sneaker right here, everything was wrong with it. Needed a brand new midsole, new netting, new tongues. The entire upper was cooked. Over here, like I said, you can't even tell it's the same exact shoe, you guys. This sneaker right here is fully wearable, a complete 180 from when it first started. If you guys ask me what was the most impactful part of this restoration, I'm gonna say everything. Starting with the deep clean. This shoe needed it inside and out so freaking bad, but thanks to our Reshoevn8r products, it brought it back to life. The second biggest thing is adding the new parts. Thanks to the midsole and the netting, we were able to make the shoe fully wearable again. Besides that, all the prep work and the paint really turned the shoe around. If I was to not do any of those steps I did in this restoration, it would definitely be incomplete and it would have not turned out as great as it did right here. Now, my goal for this restoration was to teach you guys that any single shoe, no matter how beat it is, can always come back to life. As long as you take your time, practice on your craft, no sneaker is impossible. I definitely enjoyed this restoration and showed you guys an in-depth process on how to bring the shoe back to life. I do plan on doing more of these masterclass restorations. Please drop a comment down below on what you want to see me do next. You can find all the Reshoevn8r products that I use in this restoration at Reshoevn8r.com. You can also find all the tools I use in this restoration down below in the description. This is Vick Almighty. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something. I'll catch you guys next Monday. See you guys.